Uh, um, hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, go ahead. Um, yeah, how's everyone doing today? We are here to speak with Raphael of Sonologyst, um, and his many other hats that he has that we'll be talking about here today. When I first was introduced to his work, he was running Unexplained Sounds Group and also performing as Sonologyst. And then after that, we got to know his second label, which was Eighth Tower Records. And then over the last year or so, he's started releasing books through Eighth Tower. And then also over the last couple of months, I guess, we'll get into some more detail about that in our conversation. But now he's also running reverse alignment. So we have a lot of things that we can talk about here today. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce Raphael here. All right. Um, Make sure I got your sound set up correctly here. How's it going, Raphael?
Hi, Michael. I'm fine, thank you.
Great, great. Can everybody hear us both okay? Let me know if you cannot. Good evening, Ronnie. Good evening, Mater Lacrimaran. Good evening, Desideri Marginis, Mambi Yuliman. All right, cool. We got a yes from him. I was killing a couple
Hello,
seconds
guys.
there, making sure that everybody could hear us both. Donica, hey, how's everybody doing today? Yeah, so I was Raphael's definitely one of the he's getting I mean he's already been a pretty big name here in the scene, but you're getting to be a bigger and bigger name as years go by. You've got a lot of hats that you're wearing these days. So in general, how are you holding up with all of this juggling that you're doing with all of your different projects?
First of all, thanks a lot for inviting
Oh,
me,
you're very welcome.
and I hope everybody is going well. I see a lot of friends in chat. Very, very, very happy to see friends from the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not an easy deal to work with different things in the same times. It's something that was growing over the years, and probably I never have the idea when I started to work with music. It was just like a hobby, like my passion, and over the years, things are always growing, and sometimes I would like a day or 24 hours to make everything, but it's very hard sometimes. But it's very nice and fun,
Yeah, that's awesome. So
much better than many other works around.
yeah. Yeah, so I guess I kind of want to just talk to you maybe in chronological order here of the way that everything's gone for you. So, I guess when did you, with Unexplained Sounds Group, that's more I would consider like an experimental music label, whereas Eighth Tower and Reverse Alignment are more focused on dark ambient. But so when did you really start to get into experimental music, and was your Sinologist project the first thing that you did when you got into that kind of music?
Actually, they were like two different rivers that always ran in a parallel way. Uh, when I started the Unexplained Sounds label, it was around 2014. I was interested in concrete music, experimental, and sound design. And but Dark Ambient, if you look at my first compilation, Dark Ambient was already present in my works, in my releases, even though it was probably not presented in the way that usually dark ambient is introduced. Probably the box was different, but in reality, many tracks of my compilation, the early compilations of Unexplained Sounds Group, were mixed of dark ambient, concrete music, avant-garde, drone experimental. There were a lot of music genres all together, and dark ambient was already present since the beginning. In a second moment, I understood that probably I needed to present the projects in a much focused way to distinguish the various kind of audiences each other. That's why I thought to create the 8 Hour Records project to focus on dark ambient music in a more specific way.
Yeah, okay. So
And Sonologyst project, to answer to your question, Sonologyst project was already present before the foundation of Unexplained Sounds label. The project started in 2012, even though my first music tracks probably go back to the beginning of 2000s. But the first release is from 2012. So before I started with Unexplained Sounds.
okay. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, you were making music in the early 2000s, but you really started to put together what Sonologyst was going to be, and then have your first actual releases then around the 2012 time, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, exactly.
That's cool.
Okay.
Was it the similar sort of music back when you got started, or did that change much over time?
It's always changes.
Yeah.
Always changes because we also try to experiment some new approach to music, and over the years, many things. It's natural that many things change in time. At the beginning of my project, I was more focused on experimental music in the vein of the 50s and 60s revisitation of what composers like the ones from the Cologne school or Paris school, the Musique Concrète school did in those years. And along times, I found a more personal voice with my project and tried to blend various kind of moods, including the darkest part of my inclination to music. Actually, my interest with dark ambient music is back a long time ago, because one of the first album that I consider dark ambient is On Land by Brian Eno, that is from 1982.
Oh, nice.
So that is it's a wonderful album, and in my opinion, is one of the first example of dark ambient in the history of music of second half of the century. And since from that album, I understood that there was the possibility to work with the field recordings and concrete music and sound design, and at the same time to mix the classic dark ambient music all together. So with the following projects of Sonologyst, like Silencers, Apocalypse, and other albums, I tried to do exactly that thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you really focus on the beginnings of the genre for your experience in it. That's interesting. Because a lot of people, found it in the 90s or even into the 2000s, or for me, I didn't find it until like 2012. So, yeah, I mean, you were starting your label around the same time that I was discovering this genre of music. So that's really cool that you sort of saw this thing coming the way that it is now for sort of decades before it happened. Well, not before it happened, but you were sort of watching it as it was happening. So that's really cool. And I still to this day haven't looked that much into the things back in the 50s and 60s that you're talking about with like the, the concrete music and all that kind of stuff. I really, I need to do some more research on that level of the beginnings of the dark ambient and regular ambient and, Berlin school and all those kinds of things. I'm not really well versed on that stuff at all. So, and it doesn't come up that often, which is why I haven't. So that's really cool that you sort of look back to that really original
You
music.
know that most of the electronic music we listen every day come from those times, come from the French school of musique concrète and from electronic music school in Germany. It's just that many people don't know that.
Yeah.
That's the problem. But in actually everything, also the young musicians, probably they don't know. Some of them don't know anything about that period, but actually all the music they listen in the past come from that period, and so consciously or unconsciously they are following and revisiting those creations from 50s and 60s.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean that's true. It's like you say, the influences all go back to then, but by this point, people don't even necessarily realize that some person back in the
Yes,
'80s picked up what somebody in the '60s was doing, and then the people in the '90s followed the
yeah.
people in the '80s, and you get this far down the road, and nobody even knows where it came from half the time. But it does have these really interesting and much older
Hmm.
foundations. Um, so
It's not necessary. It's not necessary. You know the history of music to make music, but if you know something, it's nice.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it can only be helpful to know more of what happened back then. It might not hurt to not know about it, but it certainly is better that you do, I think. So before we get too far from it, Deborah, I'm glad you actually got in. Thanks for joining. And she said, I'd love to know what instruments Raphael uses to make his music. So maybe since we're talking about Sonologyst here at the moment, what sort of things do you incorporate when you are working on albums, and how has that changed over the time?
Yeah. Well, I started to learn music when I was 15, and I played acoustic guitar and then electric guitar. Over the years, the equipment and instrumentation changes anytime because in my opinion if you want to get a different palette of colors when you make a new album, probably it's better to change almost everything. So every year I change 70% of my equipment, so it's
Nice.
difficult to say. It's difficult. Yeah, it can seem strange, but it's not. I constantly sell and buy instruments because I need to change, and of course, I can't fill my house completely with the new instruments, so I need to sell the old ones. But it's important for me to change the instruments because you can interact with the new techniques and with new approaches to do music when you have something new in your hands. And that's the very nature of the word experimental from my point of view, because we are in the 21st century and every compositional method was already invented and reinvented many times in the past. So if you want to experiment, you have just to deal with technology and try to use the technology in the most creative way possible.
Yeah, so So you then mostly focus on using like analog instruments then, or do you incorporate many like software VST type of things, or is it mainly external instruments?
I use almost only analog instruments, but to make the music. I mean, of course, to record and care about the mastering, I work in the digital realm. While the about the production, the creation of the of music, I use only analog sources.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
They can be synthesizers, they can be electroacoustic instruments, or object trouvé, something that I electrify, or contact microphones. There are a lot of things, and also I don't know, trumpet, guitar. That's why it was easy to reply to the Deborah question, because every year it changes. You can find the trumpet a couple of years ago in my music, and now you won't find it. It changes anytime.
Yeah, yeah, I can really tell that that's the case. I mean, you look at, the Unexplained Sounds album has its own sound, and then, A Dream Inside a Dream has its own sound, and the Silencers, I have that one.
Yeah.
I was listening to the vinyl of that one earlier today. That I really love the sound on that one particularly. That's one of my favorites. And then Apocalypse, that one really probably is my favorite because that's the most like I think I don't know whether you would agree or not, but to me that's your most dark ambient album that you've done. It's
Yeah.
the least
Totally agree.
experimental and the most like really just dark ambient. So, and yeah, there's a lot of really great tracks across all of your works, but
Eh,
I yeah.
I wanted to scare people with that album. It was
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
yeah, definitely.
Starting from the title, no? Starting from the title, Apocalypse.
Yeah, and yeah, some of those samples on that album are really pretty creepy too.
Yeah,
So yeah, Desideri Marginus Johans says contact mics.
yeah.
lots
Hi, Johan.
lots of contact mics. Uh Hey Matej. Matej says everyone's into contact mics. Make sure to check out the excellent Slovak label Audio
That's
Lab.
advertising.
Yeah. Felix has a question. How do you get the contact to such awesome artists, especially
Mm.
especially the Persian Survey? I think it's hard to find such gems. Yeah, I was going to be asking about that also. Yeah, you seem like you have such an extensive group of people that you speak with related to music. I mean, you do these different compilations on Unexplained Sounds that focus on different regions around the world, and it's just an extensive number of artists that you work with. And I personally have found like so many artists and tracks on those compilations that I really love. So, yeah, as they were asking, how do these things happen? Like, is how do you
Well,
manage to find so many people?
everything started before the creation of the label. I was simply connected through the social networks with a lot of people. I shared my passion and interest for music, and I started to simply to comment their music, to write some small review, or simply sharing the post, and that was for a couple of years, and I made a lot of friends, and we exchanged opinion about music, ideas, some collective project collaborations, and that way this kind of small community, international community, became bigger and bigger. So when I decided tried to make a compilation about artists from Iran. It was probably 4 or 5 years after I started the community, and I had a lot of contacts already, and it was not such difficult to make the first compilation. Probably it's more difficult now because I have to feed the work I did in the past, and I have to keep high the quality. It's not always easy compared to with when you start something. No, to start is always easier than to continue at a certain level.
Yeah, you have a expectation that people are building up with what you're doing by that point.
And actually, I was also lucky that the electronic music scene in Iran, and also the dark ambient music scene, is simply wonderful. Many people, I realized that many people 5 years ago didn't know almost anything about the Persian scene, electronic music scene, while there are a lot of very interesting musicians, very talented musicians. And they have familiarity with electronic music since the middle of the 70s, because the Iranian government in that period managed to organize many events, and personalities like John Cage were invited in Iran to make workshops and to talk about electronic music. So they are not new to electronic music, and I thought that it was a good thing to highlight what they were doing, and with the poor means, poor instruments, with much less economic possibilities compared with Western musicians, and they are doing a really wonderful job.
Yeah, I was just laughing there a second ago because I was just getting ready
Yeah.
to mention that the only two artists that I had known out of Iran were Mohammed of Xerxes the Dark and Mehdi of
Yeah.
Alpha One, and then just as I'm getting ready to mention him, Xerxes the Dark pops into chat here. So hey, how you doing, Mohammed? Thanks for stopping by. Thank you for stopping by, Jan of Spartson. Yeah, so
I on.
was yeah so yeah
Hi,
I
Muhammad.
really
Muhammad is
loved
coming.
Xerxes the Dark's music since I first heard him, and Alpha One is another one of my favorite dark ambient artists. So that was really it was really interesting to find out that those guys were from Iran, because I feel like that must be a little bit extra complicated with, the interaction with it's sort of a complicated interaction that they have with the world right now. But it's really awesome that those two guys in particular, to my knowledge, have been able to build up such a level of fame, and people that know of their music outside of their country. And then when you came out with that CD that we're talking about now, again, there were just so many more great artists that you featured on there, and it's obviously a very thriving community in that country that sort of, I think, is totally unexpected to people that don't know about it.
Yeah, here we are. We have Muhammad Xerxes the Dark. He helped me a lot to getting in touch with the people from Iran. I have to thank him very much because he was really, really supportive, and we made a great work together. And we are still collaborating for another project that probably will be released in the early 2022, about dark ambient from Middle East. So be prepared for that.
Nice. Yeah, I will definitely be looking forward to that. Um, Looking through chat here real quick. I don't want to let any of these slip by. Oh, Deborah also asked if you have licensed any of your music for any TV shows or movies. She was saying that a lot of people have been doing that recently, which I'm really glad is starting to happen. Are you working on any have you had any of your music offered to any TV shows or movies or anything like that?
Sometimes for independent documentary, it happened with independent experimental movies or documentaries, not specifically for TV shows or stuff related to the world of the television,
Yeah, I think
or at
I
least
think it's
not yet.
a great thing for documentaries. Experimental and dark ambient. I mean, you know, you usually just get like a regular composer that's just like trying to come up with a mood, and it's like there's whole genres out here that do this for a living, you know. Contact the people that already know how to do this. Don't ask some guy that plays piano to figure out how to make dark ambient. There's already a bunch of great dark ambient artists that you can use for this, or you know, just any kind of experimental genre that you're looking for. It doesn't necessarily have to be dark ambient, but yeah, I that's what I
It's
was saying
probably
back in like 2015, like why aren't they using all of these artists in movies and shows and documentaries? And I think that the industry is finally starting to catch on slowly. So
yes, probably they need more time to discover what we are doing in the underground.
yeah. Yeah, well, it's just we got to get one of our fans just have to become an excellent movie director that or producer, I guess even more so than director that would just be able to sort of slap the industry around and tell them, "Hey, you're looking in the wrong place for music, guys." Cuz you know, they put together a multi-million-dollar horror movie and then pick some crappy artist to put on there to make the music, and it's like you could have done so much better if you'd looked into the types of music that we listen to. You would have found perfection here, but instead they get something mediocre every single time. It's
Uh,
rare to find a good movie soundtrack.
so I think that you are talking about a sort of a closed circle of people that it's difficult to enter. But I don't want to add more about that.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, this brings us to an interesting connector here. I guess we would say your most recent release here that you've been working on is the Beyond, the music inspired by the Lucio Fulci Death trilogy.
Yeah.
So yeah, since that music is inspired by some horror movies, maybe you would like to speak a little bit about that compilation and your why you decided to pick that as the topic.
Well, it's both the compilation, the music compilation, and the book of stories are inspired to the trilogy of the Hell of Gates by the, the director Lucio Fulci, the Italian director. And the movies are from the beginning of 80s. They are the City of Dead, the Beyond, and the House by the Cemetery. And I asked musicians and writers at the same time to create an unreleased track, each one that was focused on one of those movies exactly, or in general on the mood, on the atmosphere and the philosophy that was in some way included in those Fulci productions that were very surrealistic, macabre, and horrific. And so we built up both of the projects in the same time, even if it's practically impossible to release a book and a compilation in the same time because they are completely different business. If you only think that to make a new track, a musician can ask me sometimes 1 week or a couple of weeks, while a writer asks me for 4 months
Yeah.
to make a story. So it's not possible to connect in the same time. But I think that people are appreciating what we are doing on 8 hour because my scope will be to create a sort of bridge between dark fiction and dark ambient. It's not possible to make that for every project that I do, but I hope at least for a couple of projects a year, we will always have a book and a audio CD connected each other based on the same theme.
Yeah, well, you just made a really interesting point there. Because there's two ways of going about putting together a book compilation. You could just basically say, what do you have laying around your computer that you would like to throw at me? Or it sounds more like you come to artists or authors in this context and say, this is exactly what I want, now go make it. You see what I'm saying? Like it sounds like you are getting them to make something specifically for you and not just looking for chunks of material that might work, if that makes
Yes,
sense.
that's exactly true. When working for 8-hour records or 8-hour book publications, means to me to express and to showcase the passions and interests I always had in my life about modern mythologies, about paranormal phenomena or scientific matters and stuff like that. And every project has to be precisely tailored on what is the concept in my mind. When I'm in touch with a writer for a book or with a musician, we need a certain time to be connected each other, because there's always the risk that they go out of theme, that they don't understand exactly what I want to reach, I need a time to understand exactly what's the right team to make a project like that. But luckily, in time, there are some collaborations that are becoming steady, not occasional, but very steady, and that's a very good point, because that means that in the past everything will be easier.
Yeah, so we this is the book that I have here that I am working on right now. So talk a little bit about this one then. What your inspiration was to bring together such a nice sized cast. I mean, we've got a lot of different artists here, authors here that came together for this book, and there's a couple of big authors in there that it looks like you have reused a story from a previous compilation, but the vast majority of it is stories that were made specifically for this project. And with that many artists, and this being your first time getting into this, I thought it was really impressive what you put together with this. So yeah, if you'd like to just kind of talk about its inception and how you feel about how it came together.
Yeah, I'm really satisfied of this first project. I realized that in collaboration with those writers, there are 27 writers involved in the project, and one of them was in charge for the editing. So 28 people in the same time, and it was a very long and hard work. I think I needed more than 1 year to do that. Probably 14 months or stuff like that.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah, I was the first thing I tried to communicate to the writers. Most of them I didn't know at the time. I was a friend with probably 4 or 5 of them, and of course with them it was easy. But with all the others, the problem was to communicate my idea about the 8 hour and about the vision I have for 8 hour, that in my vision has not to be another dark ambient label, because there are a lot around and many of them do a beautiful work. So the world doesn't need another dark ambient label like 8 hour. While probably this kind of mix between different kind of arts and the world of narrative dark fiction and also non-fiction with music, with dark ambient music, is probably something that is still unexplored around. Maybe there are some isolated project, but not a label that do that every time, and that has that focus as main focus of the whole work. And they was enthusiast of this kind of approach I have. So I started with a couple of them. They introduced me their friends until I was in touch with Ramsey Campbell, that is a big institution in the dark fiction literature. I really didn't expect that he could accept to participate to this first anthology from a micro editor like me that had never did a book before. But he was very friendly and kind, and gave me the permission to use one of his historical tales from a previous anthology of his stories, and I thank him very much. So all the others came as a consequence, because it was enough to realize what were the first names in the book.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, and I mean, sometimes I think, authors, it's gonna take them a long time to put together a book. There's so much more to writing out a story than there is to, I mean, for some people, I'm sure there are a lot of considerations for writing a song, but other people can sit down and just, knock a song out in 20 minutes if they want to. And you can't do that with a short story. Even if you wanted to, it's going to take you a couple of days. Even if you wanted to do it that quickly,
Yes,
and most people don't.
Totally agree. They are two completely different levels, two completely different orders.
Yeah, so let's see what some people are saying here. Yeah, Felix said, I don't care about film. I was hyped to have been featured at the Ocean of Sound compilation. Danica is saying, few people outside the underground even know that dark ambient is actually a scene with a long history, and we have so few music journalists to help get the word out. I know, Danica, we are doing all we can, me and you. Mambi Yulman says Sonologyst needs to score UFO documentaries. I totally agree. I think you would do a fantastic job at that. Zyklon had asked, what kind of music have you been listening to on your personal time? I wanted to hear the answer to that as well.
I listen to many kind of music. I can't hear you, Michael.
You can't hear me?
Okay. Now it's okay. No, I was saying that it's up and down. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, no, I was just wondering if you wanted to answer Zyklon's question there of what kind of stuff you like to listen to usually. Is there anything that's particularly been interesting to you lately, or?
Think about that. I work full time with music and usually 8 hours a day or stuff like that. So while I do the scouting of new musicians, or if I work on my personal music, or if I'm working on the mastering of a record, it's like an uninterrupted flux of drum music, dark ambient, experimental, avant-garde. So when I stop to work with the music I care about, I prefer to change completely register with music, and probably, I don't know, listen to some soul music or funky or dub or everything that I can be funny with.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I know what you mean. I've been when I'm not I've been reading a lot lately, so even if I'm listening to this sort of stuff all the time, you know, to consider it for reviews and things, when I'm reading, I still just want to listen to even more of it. So I've been listening to almost nothing but ambient music of one kind or another for months now.
Yeah, for reading, it's dark ambient music is my choice. When I read something at late night on my sofa, I use dark ambient music as a soundtrack for my mind.
Yeah, and
That's for
I
sure.
mean that's why it's so perfect, you know, what you're working on here with pairing books with albums, because, you know, it does work perfectly together. And
Yeah.
you know, like you were saying, there's nobody else that's really doing it that much in the same way. I've been reading a Anathema book that's, you know, more of the esoterica type of thing. They sort of focus more on occult, religious type of stuff, and you know they're sort of working with cyclic law a little bit, but that's really the only other place that I could point to that I know of, and they're sort of loosely connected together, where you are just streamlining this thing, and you're like, this book, this album, this is what's happening, you know, and I think it's gonna be a pretty popular venture that you're putting together here. The more of these that start to come out, and the more people get to know what you're doing with it, I think it's gonna work out really well with the community. I think they're gonna appreciate what you're doing there.
I hope so. I hope so. The start was not bad.
What was that?
I hope so. The start was not bad.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think the start was great. um, yeah.
Now we'll see with the next book. Next book is of course focused on the Fulci trilogy.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so that'll be the one that goes along here with this
Yeah,
compilation that you just
exactly.
released. And you don't have to say what, but do you already have something else in mind that you're going to be working on after this?
You mean about this kind of project?
Yeah, like I
You
mean, you
say
don't have
book?
to tell us what it is, but do you already have an idea for what you want to work as a third
Yeah,
project?
I have a plan for 2 years.
Oh, okay, okay. Cool. Hey, that's the way to do it. That's smart. uh Taza-san says nice t-shirt, Raphael.
Thank you, thank you.
I
Siamo
just realized
sponsor qua.
I just realized what it is. It's got all the different knobs on it. um just finishing going through people's comments here, seeing if I missed anything. Yeah, so and you also just released the Schloss Tegal Music from Madness as a reissue on Eighth Tower. And I was reading a little bit about how that project came together with you working with them on it. Do you want to talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, yeah. I met Richard from Schlosslegal project in Prague. I was attending a concert that he had in December 2019, a little bit before the beginning of pandemic. And after the concert, we had been already in touch before that concert because he had participated to one of my compilations. So after the concert, we had a beer. And we had some talks about potential collaboration for the future, and so we everything began in that moment. Then he told me that he wanted to publish on his website or Bandcamp site this material from the end of 80s. To be precise, the tracks are from the 86 to 90, more or less. And I found it extremely interesting because it's the material that can be considered the right introduction for his best work, that probably is the album RhaD 3, published by Cold Spring Records. So I was very enthusiastic to republish this abandoned an old cassette tape that was published in 1991, if I remember well, from an American label that is does never exist now, and it's probably one of the first steps we can have to make something new together in the future.
Yeah, it's a really great album. I had not heard it before, and yeah, I was listening to it here the other day and reading about the history of, you know, how it was originally made and then how you got to work with him on it, and yeah, I really love that release. So
it's a very fresh album, even though the music comes from more than 30 years ago.
yeah, it feels like something that fits right in with the scene today.
Yeah,
I
many young musicians try to do nowadays what Richard did 35 years ago, and many people try to emulate that kind of lo-fi style, that kind of a very immersive sound, very raw and immersive sound, and so I think his work is really seminal.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so what are some of the interesting things that you've been doing lately with Unexplained Sounds Group? I've been a little less I was kind of out of the loop for like 2 years, and then I put this Twitch channel together, and I really got reinvigorated with coming back into the scene. So I've been more focused on what you've been doing with Eighth Tower. So for, you know, for people here, what are some of the recent highlights of things that you've been doing over on Unexplained Sounds?
Yeah, Unexplained Sounds is, as many friends and people know, is very focused on the sound mapping project. That is a project that started in 2015. When my idea was to create a sort of mapping of the music coming from non-Western countries, from the south of the world. So from, I mean, regions like Asia, Africa, and Central and South America, where there the music from those countries, from those regions, is less known than, of course, than the Western music coming from United States or Europe, for logic reasons of economic differences, political reasons, and also because for a matter of culture, probably we are all extremely white-centric oriented when we consume culture or music or whatever. And that's a very huge problem. Also on a magazine on the most important magazine in the world, critics and reviewers are thinking about these aspects of the music distribution and diffusion. Luckily, internet is always one step ahead, and so it was easy to, or at least easier than in the past, to take the right connections and to start to create those anthologies focused on the single country's scenes. And it seems that people are liking a lot the project that is going to become a collectible series. And I'm very happy about that. It was a very hard work, and so I'm happy I'm having some results after 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I give you a lot of respect for what you're doing in that fashion, because it's sort of a risky prospect to work with so many unknown artists, and to, put so much time into something that you know is gonna, to a certain extent, even if it is great music, get less coverage just because you say, like, oh, this person isn't from Europe. This compilation doesn't have anybody from Europe in it. Why do I even care? But listen to it and you'll find out why you care. It's just as good as everything that's coming out of the United States or Europe. So it is not it's not the smartest thing to do from a business sense, but it's absolutely the right thing to do from a music lover's stance.
And
And
usually when you run a label, when you run a label, most of the time people send to you submissions. In this case, it's exactly the opposite. I have to find those people. I have to catch those people. I have to chase them.
yeah.
If you pass me the word. And because they even don't know who asked for a publication. They don't have connections. They are not in the right circles. It's me that I have to find them and to create a logic for an anthology, a sort of continuity in a compilation to highlight the music coming from those countries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm really glad you're doing that, and I'm glad it's like you said, it's starting to show some success, and picking up steam, and people are understanding that, while these, like, they haven't heard of any of these projects, but that's not a reason to not listen to it. People definitely should be checking it out. And like I said, that the one from the Persian one, I mean, there were so many good artists on that one, and I need to dig deeper into a lot of these other ones, because I'm sure it's consistent across the board with all of these. Felon Frost, thank you for stopping by. I'm glad you're hanging out here with us today. That's another excellent music journalist that we have on the periphery of the scene. She, I think, works more often with black metal. But I know her from our simultaneous Terra Relicta days, and we've both now taken our own directions. So I'm glad she decided to stop by today. And she says, "What has been the most exciting release for you to date? What is your favorite release that you've done on one of your labels?" That you've
from my labels.
Yeah, something that you've released, not of your own, but of one of the other artists that has really resonated with you.
Well, the one I always remember very nicely is the first anthology of Iranian music in 2016, because it was a shock on the internet when I released that compilation that was only digital. And I remember at the time thousands of people getting crazy for that kind of stuff that was really, really new in that period. there was a lot of sharing, a lot of discussions on internet, and you can't imagine what happened when there was the political tension between United States and Iran, and in the same time I was working with the second compilation from Iran, and that was another crazy period because everything happened in the same time. The artistic side of the matter and the political side crashed each other, and was really exciting, really electrifying. Even though the situation was serious, but there was this electricity in the air, and a lot of joy from the Iranian artists I collaborated with.
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, I remember that exactly when it happened, you know, because like you said, it was sort of a shock to people. Like, wow, he just released an album that was all Iranians, and like, it almost seemed like it wasn't possible. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have even thought like, how would you even do that? But then you did, and it's like, well, shit. Not only can you, but wow, these are great musicians that we've been missing out on. So, yeah, I've been sort of keeping an ear and an eye
We
on that music since
we've
then.
been we were even blocked by Bandcamp just for using the name Iran in the title.
Wow,
I had to
that's
change
why
the
you ended
name.
up calling it Persian.
Yes, I had to change the
Wow.
name because Bandcamp blocked me and PayPal blocked me and everything was going to be fucked. So I had to change the name from Iranian in Persian.
Holy crap. Yeah, I didn't even know that. That's interesting. Um yeah, wow. So, all right. Well, so now you are also now working as you are the man behind reverse alignment now. So, I don't know how that happened or why it happened. So I don't know if that's a thing that you can or would want to talk about or not, but to whatever extent that you would like to give us any details about how that came to be, I think we'd all be interested to know.
Yeah, there's not a big secret behind this this new project. Actually, Christian Widquist, that was the previous owner of the label, made a public statement to explain why he gave up with the label. He very honestly declared that his life was going in another direction, and he needed to manage his time for new adventures. So he was abandoning the label since almost 1 year before I took over the label itself. He started to slow the rhythm of the new releases, and when I knew through a friend of mine that probably he was going to abandon the project, I contacted him, and we found an agreement so that I could continue to work with the label and relaunch the label, and he was happy because Christian is happy with the fact that the label is still alive. After the very good work he made from 2007 till the last year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm just looking through the discography right now. There's just all sorts of great albums that were released on there. Jarl was making that his home for the last couple of years, for instance. One of the guys from one of the original members of IRM, and
Yeah.
Taphophobia has done work over there. Aina, Valanx, the Cision Item Caligo, Queer Reminiscence. That's an absolutely amazing album.
A great team, a dream team.
The Horfrost, Anima Mundi, that's an absolutely amazing album. I'm just looking down through here and just remembering all of these just amazing releases that I've heard through that label over the years. So, yeah, I mean, it's. I think we're all really pleased that you decided to keep it alive because,
Yeah. Actually, when I heard that probably the label was going to be quitted, I thought that it was really a shame, and that since a long time ago, when I watched the catalog of reverse alignment, I often thought that that's a kind of music that I would like to release on my label. That's the projects I'd like to release, and so it was a good occasion to realize a dream.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, and yeah, and so then, well, Gusnan here asks, any new Moliebka Pulse plans in the near future for that project?
Possibly, yes,
Okay,
very possibly.
and then yeah, so you are more or less then planning on keeping the roster that they already had there. It's more or less going to stay the same roster. I'm sure you're going to be adding new musicians to it of your own taste and your own familiarity, but will we expect to see a lot of those old musicians continuing to release through the label? Or is that too early to know?
For the beginning, my idea is to publish some artist that is an historical role for the label. So you can expect, and I hope we will soon finish the project with Jarl and Moliepka. They are probably two of the most representative artists on the label. They did many albums, and so it's quite natural. I can continue with them to feed the label and to stay on a line of a minimalistic dark ambient music that was very good. So I want to change it in a drastic way the work that was done in the past. But at the same time, you can imagine that I have a lot of contacts, so it's very possible that new artists will appear soon or at least next year on Reverse Line.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm really glad to hear you're going to be continuing to work with Jarl because I love Jarl's music, and some of my favorite albums of his have been through Reverse Alignment, so I'm glad that's going to continue.
Coming soon, coming very soon.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I always look forward to new Jarl albums. Felon Frost also asks, how was the search for other artists from countries not as prominent as Europeans and Americans? Is there anything interesting in Brazil or South America?
Well, of course, yes. I released the compilation recently. I released the compilation about music from Peru. So I'm quite confident that I will continue to work with musicians from that area. Brazil, yes, it's interesting, even though probably there is not enough major situation to make an entire anthology. I tried in the past, but I have to work much more to get the result with Brazil. It's a bit far to come.
Yeah, Brazil is a interesting country. There's a lot going on there. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just reading another comment there. Yeah, so yeah, and I also saw here I was looking through this while you were talking. You did one from Mexico there, and then
Yes.
yeah, I've got to listen through a lot of these. The you've got one from the Balkan region, you've got one from Lebanese artists, you've got Middle Eastern artists, you've got another one from the African continent. We've got a Latin America one. So yeah, I mean, there's just yeah, you've been all over the world with these compilations. So it's really awesome. I mean, the more I'm looking through them here, I really need to dig deeper into these myself. As I said, I need to get back. I'm like working really hard to pick up on what I missed over the last couple of years. There's so many things that are happening, and I have to figure out exactly where to aim my focus at on any given month. I'm kind of like picking a label and just diving deep, and that's what I've been doing recently with the channel. Is like I do like a label spotlight, and that's for me as much as it is for the people that I'm talking to, because like I pick a label and then I just spend like a month listening to everything by that label just over and over and over again, and then I can tell everybody else to do the same thing. So yeah, I'll have to do a proper unexplained sounds spotlight here in the near future, and that'll be fun for me and everybody
With
else that gets
pleasure.
to hear it.
With great pleasure.
Yeah. So and then Mombi says, will the Big Cypress Swamp label primarily focus on various artist compilations for future releases?
Well, that's a difficult deal. There are not current projects for Big Cypress Swamp because it's a label that is going to be overlapped with the reverse alignment and 8-hour records. So it's not easy to focus something different on that label. I'm sorry about that, but probably I need some good idea to give a sense, a much more sense to the Big Cypress Swamp label at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, well, thank you guys. We're getting a lot of interesting questions here and comments from everybody today. I really appreciate you guys all chiming in here. Kettle of Taphophobia says the new State of Flux was a great release, and it was a pleasure to contribute with the track. Yeah, it was.
Pleasure was mine, Katie. Thank you very much.
And then Mike says, and what about Australian native music? Does any Aborigines music exist? That would be interesting.
Yeah, but that's not my focus. My focus is not the original folk music. It's the reinterpretation of traditional music by the electronic means.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
It, it's if you want to listen to folk music, you have to look at some other labels that do in an excellent way that works since 50 or 60 years.
Ronnie wants to know what's in the mug. Or I don't know if you're talking to me or Raphael. My mug has coffee in it as usual.
Yeah, coffee as
We're
well.
both
Long
drinking coffee.
American coffee.
Yeah, I quit drinking alcohol, so there's never anything fun in my cups anymore. It's always just coffee or tea. I mean, I don't know. I get headaches from drinking, so I quit. Ronnie says he agrees the new State of Flux is an awesome compilation. Happy to have my copy here. Yes, me too. Where's mine at? Here we go. Yes, I'm happy to have mine as well. Really nice packaging, and yeah, it's a great release here. I'm definitely enjoying checking mine out as well.
Yeah, Ronnie was another great contributor to the compilation.
Yeah, I need to fully dive into his music as well. I've heard a decent bit of it, but I have definitely not extensively dug into his music, and I really need to do that. So, and I appreciate him. He's been hanging out in a lot of these Twitch streams too. So yeah, I'll,
I think that Ronnie music is a bit underrated.
yeah,
He makes a dark ambient very minimalist and abstract. It's not an easy deal to listen to his music, but I think it's closer to the electronic music and experimentation than many other artists around.
yeah, yeah, awesome. Yeah, I would agree. From as I said, from the amount that I have listened, I would agree. So, do you have any near future plans for Sonologyst? Are you currently working on an album? And if so, is it going to be again taking a total new direction, or will it be similar to anything that you've done in the past?
I'm right now working on my new album.
Yeah.
Not right now working on my new album that could be published within the end of the year. I don't know exactly when and exactly on which label. I'm discussing that aspect with some people, and this new album will be a little bit cosmic as flavor. A little bit ambient compared with some of the past releases that were closer to the post-industrial approach of music. Probably it will be a little bit minimal and cosmic as mood.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll be looking forward to that. That sounds like a
But
interesting
I'm
situation there.
right in the middle of the process now, so my ideas aren't completely clear.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you got to wait until it fully realizes itself, and then you can talk about it a little bit more detailed, I'm sure. So, yeah, that makes sense to me. And so, how much of your time do you do? I know you do mastering. Do you do a lot of mastering for artists outside of your labels, or do you focus mainly on artists in your labels?
Mainly on my labels, even though I always do an average of 10, 15 works every year for someone out of my labels.
Okay.
I recently also mastered an hip hop album.
Oh, really? That's cool. Out of which country?
United States, but is still in the process of printing, so it's not out. It's not still released.
Nice. Well, when that happens, you got to let me know because I
Yeah,
listen to a
sure.
lot of hip hop in my own time. So every time I share it on Facebook, nobody wants to hear. Nobody cares. They're like, "What are you sharing this shit for? We want to. We're here for the dark ambient, Michael. Go away with your hip hop." Like, okay, fine. But yeah, I'm a huge fan. I've been listening to hip hop since I was literally like 6 years old. It's one of my original genres that I've loved. So I would definitely be interested to see how you bring something like that together from a mastering perspective. So I personally am very interested in that.
Sure.
Loopsy says, "Could you please tell Raphael that Loopsy is watching you from
Oh,
Vienna, even though she is in a
nice to
hotel
see you,
room for
Lucia.
vacation?" That's funny. Um,
Really glad to see her.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, we've got there's. I guess it's been about an average of 30 to 35 people hanging out here watching. So I think I think we might be breaking the record today. I don't think I think I'm usually pretty excited when we get up to 25 people. So yeah, well, there's a lot of people hanging out a lot of people interested in what you have to say tonight. So
Very
I'm
happy about it.
yeah, I'm really glad that we could do this, and you know, it's every the whole thing of as you say, with writing music, you got to keep trying new things, and that's what I've been trying to do with my channel. That's why I kind of went silent for 2 years. Is like I felt like I wrote everything that there was to write, and people loved my writing, and it's like, yeah, but I feel like I just keep writing the same thing over and over again at this point. Like I have like certain descriptions that I give to albums, and so yeah, I'm enjoying doing this, and I'm really glad that you decided to come on here and talk to me. So
My pleasure. My pleasure.
yeah, and people just keep dropping messages. So thank you guys. Zone Man says cosmic upcoming album question mark exclamation point question mark. Oh yes. uh Thanks. Love very much of the ambient dub dark music, Lovecraftian. Please, dear Raphael and Michael, share news on the dark side of print, like the Black Stone. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit earlier, and yeah, I'm super excited that you put out a Lovecraft book because I love H.P. Lovecraft stories, and I think that he had such a fertile territory for people to follow in his footsteps, you know? It's so unfortunate that he died at the age that he did because it felt like he was just getting started with it really felt like he was hitting his stride. Like all of his last stories were just some of the best stuff he ever wrote. And if he'd been around for another
Yes.
10 or 20
Yes.
years, he would have been a
Mm.
legend beyond anybody's imagination. I mean, he's already a legend, but I mean, he basically, it was similar to, some other people where, they died thinking that their music or their writings or their movies or, so many of these famous people from the past died thinking that they were, worthless. And, for him to look back, for him to see what's happening with his with what he did back in the 1920s and 1930s, and to see that people to this day are like you are keeping his legacy alive and bringing new life into his legacy. I really appreciate that because it's just there's so much there to work with, from the gods to the atmosphere. Yeah. So, like, what kind of background do you have, and do you read a lot of Lovecraft, or
Yeah,
what
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of got
of
you into
course.
the idea of doing that?
I think I read the full work of Lovecraft a couple of times. Uh, uh, Unfortunately, he died very prematurely when he was less than 40, and but it's possible that he didn't need to stay alive long to become a legend, as it became, as a matter of fact, because the reason of his enormous legacy and success and this legendary status is in the fact that he created an entire universe instead of a collection of stories, intriguing excellent stories or masterpieces, as many other writers usually do, the ones that are famous. I mean, but in a few hundreds of pages, he created a completely independent universe, a cosmos where these alien entities are in the total control, and the human race doesn't mean anything. And that is a very modern and contemporary vision of the things. That's the reason why his work is often quoted by philosophers, critics, and sociologists, and so on. It's very contemporary, as as a kind of general philosophy of the world. So probably that's the most important heritage of Lovecraft that will last probably for a lot of time in the future, and probably he will become even more famous and important as writer in the over the next decades.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's absolutely possible, and I do hope that that's the case. I think for a long time people, I think those Reanimator movies in the '80s, for instance, really did an injustice to him for about 20 years. I know I looked at it as like nerd tentacle stuff. Like when I was growing up, like if somebody said H.P. Lovecraft to me, I had the total wrong idea about what he was about until I finally sat down and started reading it like 10 years ago, and I was like, this is amazing horror. This is not stupid. This is barely sci-fi. This is cosmic horror at its finest. The writing is the best. The creatures that he came up with are the best. Like, it's not a joke. And I think that he's really starting to get his name back again. I really think that there's Reanimator movies that it just sort of made a joke out of. I mean, they're fun to watch. I like them, but they did something to his name that I think really hurt a whole generation of kids that were like, "Oh, that's that dumb stuff." Like, no, it's not. This is fucking horror.
Cosmic horror.
Yes, yes. I mean, cosmic sometimes, but not always. Like my favorite story by him is the case of Charles Dexter Ward. And
Okay.
that one isn't cosmic at all. That is just
No.
straight up horror. That's like detective horror,
Detective, exactly.
Yeah, so are you familiar at all with Clark Ashton Smith?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
I
familiar.
love Clark Ashton Smith also. I hope that his name gets. I don't think he'll ever get the same level of popularity that Lovecraft has, but some of his stories are also just absolutely epic. The Coming of the White Worm, that one is insane. I love that one so much. Felon Frost says, writing reviews about dark ambient is undoubtedly an art for few. I would have a hard time because every time I listen, I write my weird texts about dreams and other realities. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's you get stuck in a certain way, and yeah. So doing these interviews is really a refresher for me, and is anyone a fan of Edgar Allan Poe? Zyklon says. Yeah, I'm getting off of the topic of myself. We're here to talk
We
about
all of
Raphael.
them are fan of,
Yeah, sorry, what did you say?
all of us.
Yes, yes, we are all fans of Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I his name was always at the right point for me. Well, and and to say the same thing, like I got into Edgar Allan Poe because of The Simpsons. They did some really that the Raven episode that they did in The Simpsons. I was like 6 years old when I saw that episode, and I was like, this is amazing. This is scary. This is like classy. For whatever a 6-year-old thinks is classy, but to me, like it just hit, and so yeah, I've loved Edgar Allan Poe since that was one of his books were some of the first books I ever read, like ever.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Beautiful stories.
Yeah, and I was just talking to somebody earlier today that they live over in Europe, and one of the main things that they wanted to do when they came to the United States was come here to Baltimore and see where Edgar Allan Poe died. And so yeah, I mean that's what I
Yeah.
was just talking about him earlier today with somebody.
Or to bring flowers to the tomb.
Yeah, yeah, it's in a really bad part of town though. Mombi Ullman says, yeah, Lovecraft shouldn't be sold as silly schlock. Yeah, absolutely not. Leela says, had no idea Reanimator was inspired by Lovecraft. Yeah, yeah, that was,
It is.
yeah, yeah, he did a couple, there were three
And
Reanimator stories.
better to watch 3 movies from John Carpenter to appreciate the Lovecraftian origin, like The Thing, for example, or Prince of Darkness,
Oh yeah.
or stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, The Thing is amazing, and that is it's not
Yeah,
specifically
amazing
Lovecraft,
movie.
but it is extremely Lovecraftian. I love that movie
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
much. The Thing is one of my favorite movies for sure. What else do we have here? Kettle says,
And in the Mouth of Madness, another very good movie from Carpenter,
"Yep,
is Lovecraftian.
yeah." Now that one is on me. That is very much more. Yeah, that one is great. I was trying to remember the name of that. I'm
Mm.
glad you did. Um, yeah, yeah. Yeah, everybody's agreeing with us here. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's there's that new one with Nicolas Cage. What's
I didn't see that.
no,
I didn't watch it. Didn't watch it.
I saw it, but I don't remember it. So I think that that's a bad sign.
I guess so. Yeah.
I always see Nicolas Cage movies and then I can't remember. Yeah, yeah, The Color Out of Space. Yeah, I don't
Mm.
really remember whether I liked or disliked that one. So I'd say I
It's
probably didn't like it very much. That
it's a very complicated, it's a very problematic story to make a movie already. Imagine if the movie principal character is Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, so in case everybody may have forgotten why we're talking about this topic in the first place, the Black Stone that Raphael has put together through the Eighth Tower now publishing company here. So yeah, you can. That's available. The best way to get that is on your Bandcamp, right? The Bandcamp for Eighth Tower Records.
Or Amazon.
Or oh, okay, it's yeah, that's right. It is also on Amazon. But if you get it on Amazon, you can get a bundle on your Bandcamp where you can get the CD and the book together, right? Am I?
No, not now because the CD is out of stock.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's bad for people that don't have it yet, but it's always good for people that it's good for you that it's sold out.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it's
bad
good
for
for
people
you.
that don't own it yet. But that's a nice problem to have.
That's a nice problem. Yeah. Anyway, the book is available on Amazon, and people can buy it on Amazon depending on the country where they live, because so that shipping costs can be uh, proportionate to the distance from the buyer.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, I mean, even though the CD's sold out, you can still pick up the digital copy of it there on your
Yeah, yeah,
on your
absolutely.
Bandcamp, so it can still be heard at least. But so do you have plans on making like a reprint of that, or is that just gonna be that for now?
It's possible a reprint of that record as well for of other records, but not in the near future. I prefer to wait for longer times before to make a repress.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, so does anybody else have any more questions here? I think we'll probably be getting close to wrapping this up here pretty soon. Is there anything, Raphael, that I haven't mentioned yet that you wanted to talk about with me today while we're waiting for any last questions to come in from other people? Is there anything, Raphael, that you wanted to talk to me about that I haven't mentioned to you?
No, I think we had a general vision of the projects I'm running at the moment. Probably we didn't talk just about the label ZeroK, that is another project, another side subsidiary label, more focused on dystopian themes and science fiction related matters. It's a label that has a very big visibility because I release a very few projects on that label. It's not always on the maps, but it's important for me because there are some kind of releases I can do only on that label, and I will do something new next year.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I did totally forget about that. I remember you sent me over there a
It's
couple.
not easy to remember every
Yeah, you do have a lot going on. But no, you definitely
exactly.
told me about that probably what like maybe a month or two ago. But yeah. Yeah, I get hit with so many things in any given day, so you'll have to forgive me.
Uh, no
Donica
worries.
says, "Do I understand correctly that Raphael is working on a book on the history of dark ambient?"
You did. You did, Danica.
Yeah. So, is that in too early of a stage to mention anything about, or is there anything that you want to say about that today?
Yeah, we are at the early stages. I'm collaborating with a team of 7 people. Uh, I have no intention to committed suicide by working on a history of dark ambient music by myself alone.
Yeah.
So I was in touch with many writers and music critics from the dark ambient world and even outside of the dark ambient world. And we will do a collective work with multiple voices that I like as approach because this way there is not a single point of view, but many people that can contribute with different ideas and different viewpoints to what we intend as the history of dark ambient music. And I think it will took a lot of time to get some point when we can be satisfied because the work is really long. The the material is really extended, and also I'm working by interviewing many important musicians from the dark ambient area, like also pioneers like Thomas Kohner or Robert Rich or Lustmord, and it's a very long way before to get the final point. So don't expect, Donica, something very close. It's far away from being ready.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning earlier. You know, sometimes like when it comes to putting together books, especially if you're talking about nonfiction, you know, sometimes research for people could be a matter of 1 or 2 or 3 years that they wanted to put into into researching something before they are comfortable putting pen to paper. um, and yeah, so Ronnie asked, and then a lot of people in chat answered him. I was going to say a couple of these myself. Ronnie asked what the dark ambient scene is like in Italy. Is the scene growing over there? And then yeah, so I was going to say I personally love New Risen Throne, which is out of Italy. And then somebody else mentioned Nereterai.
Yeah,
Um,
Alessio Antoni.
yes, we love Alessio. Are there any other artists aside from those two guys that you would that you are in speaking terms with or anything like that that are dark ambient artists out of Italy?
I think that Italy is not the right place to talk about a formal music that we can identify precisely with dark ambient music. If you mean an entire scene of musicians working on that kind of music because we have a very long heritage in terms of post-industrial. So all the Italian musicians, including myself, we are very influenced in some way from that kind of music, and our output is difficult to be connected exclusively with the dark ambient scene. You quoted yourself one of my album, Apocalypse, to talk about a dark ambient album. But if you consider the whole discography of Sonologyst, it's not easy to talk about a dark ambient musician in general. The mood is dark, but the music is not totally dark ambient.
Yeah.
And the same happens with the most part of musicians in Italy from the underground.
Yeah, I feel like there's you can't pick, these things happen, they happen naturally. You can't pick what happens where, but I spent a couple of weeks staying in Rome while I was doing archaeology in 2011, and I got to see Jethro Tull play in the ancient city of Ostia Antica on the beach right outside of Rome.
Yes.
Jethro Tull played up on an ancient stage, and we all got to sit in the stone ancient, bleachers, like the amphitheater bleachers, and watched him play. And
Mhm.
it was just an absolutely magical experience. And then I also caught a classical pianist playing in another ruin within the city of Rome. And those ancient Roman, not specifically to the city, but just to the country as a whole, those ancient Roman ruins are just the absolute epitome of a place to play a dark ambient concert. I mean,
Yes.
your country, like maybe not, there might not be many artists that play that kind of music, but the locations across your country are just perfect for dark ambient or dungeon synth also, I would throw in.
Mm. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah. So with that said, would you ever consider like putting together some kind of a dark ambient festival in one of those? Would that be something that would be possible to put together a festival in some ancient Roman ruin? Because I just think something like that would be so cool.
For the future, everything is possible.
Yeah.
At the moment, with all the things that I'm running, it will be really complicated to do everything that has to do with the live events and live performances and so on. It's a field where I'm not working on because it's totally different from what I'm doing now, and I will need to abandon for a time all my activities to do something like that. So, but I can't exclude that in the future with some good collaborations, something could be done.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's pretty much what I figured. What the heck?
Anyway, Ketil mentioned.
Um, your screen just went weird, I think.
Yeah,
What the heck is going on
can't
here?
see you. Can't see you now.
That was really strange. Sorry, guys. See if we'd only got 5 more minutes there. I don't know what happened there.
Skype works fine.
Technical difficulties. I don't know. The screen just got massive. I don't really know what happened. Yeah, I think we went back to whatever the same problem was that we had before. But I mean, we were just about to wrap this thing up anyway, I think. So, I guess the tech gods just went ahead and told us to just go ahead and wrap it up now, I think.
Anyway, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, we can still
Okay.
hear you. You guys can still hear him, right?
Yeah, probably some
Yeah.
interferences from UFOs, as
Yeah.
Muhammad says.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, well, okay. The screen's actually getting small enough now that yeah, we've just got the Skype. Yeah,
Ronnie says I'm got hacked.
nah, it's Skype. Skype is definitely a little goofy, but yeah, it is.
I see everything is fine on my Skype.
Yeah, that's so strange.
It's strange.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
At least I can smoke now.
yeah. There you go.
Because you don't see me.
That's funny. Yeah. No, I don't know. Yeah. Well, that's. I mean, that's okay. We can, like I said, we were about ready to finish up, so we can just do the last couple seconds here with audio. Um, yeah, but thank you very much for coming on here this evening, Raphael, and talking to us. And thank you guys all here in chat for hanging out with us tonight and asking all of your great questions. I really, really appreciate when you guys in chat have a lot of questions for the artists. That's half of what makes this thing fun. That, you know, when I'm doing it myself, you guys have to just, you're stuck with whatever I feel like asking, but this way you all get to figure out what you know, what you want to know as well. So, yeah, are you still there, Raphael?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool,
I
cool.
was listening to you with attention. Of course, I thank you a lot for inviting me. Hope it was very interesting and very funny to read in real time all the messages from the friends. I know most of them, and I love them, and we are very often in touch on social. It's beautiful to see that this community is always growing, always connecting, always up for collaborations to listen each other and help each other. It's a beautiful atmosphere, and I love that. And I love your transmission for making this video streaming. That is the only one I see in the realm of dark ambient or experimental music that is working like that. So my congratulations to you, and I hope to be with you guys another time in the future.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, you know, I'm as we get, you know, further down the road, I'm definitely going to want to bring some of you guys back on again that I've already talked to. This absolutely doesn't need to be a one-time experience. I'd like to check back in with people every couple of months or you know, once a year or something. So, yeah, you know, you always got so many things that you're working on. So I'm sure a couple more months down the road, we'll have another hour and a half worth of material to speak about.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And you know, and it's a lot of it's hard to do these kinds of things. You know, people have to have a webcam, and there's going to be technical difficulties, and so we all have to be brave. But I think that it's worth it. So yeah, so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up.
No worries. We are doing an interview like in radio style.
Yeah,
It's already like a podcast. It's the same.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everybody with all of your nice comments. Yeah, thank you all so
And
much.
I'm very comfortable now because I'm smoking and I'm taking off my t-shirt because it's hot.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's a little hot here too. That's like the last thing I do before I go live is put a shirt
Yeah,
on.
be careful to Skype, video
It's like,
Skype.
okay, I've got to put on my shirt now. All right, go live. It's hilarious. Yeah, touche, touche. Yeah,
Yeah, Andreas, we are glad we don't have image. Right.
that's great. Uh, all right, cool. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up on that light note. Yeah, thank you, Raphael. Thank you, everybody in chat.
Thanks a lot to you. Thanks
We
a lot
will
to
go
you.
ahead and call it an evening. Good night, everybody. Peace. Stay safe out there.
Good night.